right, let's get this thing over with. All right, so 2023 is officially over. So that means we are now doing my top 50 albums of 2023. 2023, another amazing year for music. I know a lot of people have been saying that this is like a pretty weak year. I mean, if you're going off the mainstream, sure, there weren't as many big mainstream drops or exciting mainstream drops. Man, towards the second half of the year, we got banger albums, man. Banger albums. So many great albums that it was very hard to make this list. So I did want to do a few honorable mentions. First one is going to be Andre 3000, New Blue Sun. I mean, it wasn't the rap album that we all wanted, but still, I really liked the kind of ambient woodwind thing he went for. I thought it was a really beautiful, very peaceful album. Wiki and Tony Seltzer, 14K Figaro, one of the most underrated albums of the year. And overall, Wiki in general is one of the most underrated rappers. There's also Yule, Soft Scars, definitely one of the most experimental pop albums to drop this year. Troye Sivan, Something to Give Each Other. I think Troy finally found his sound with this whole dance house thing he's got going on. Excited to see what he does next. Skrillex's Quest for Fire is one of the best electronic albums of the year. A good return to form for Skrillex. Glad that he's back. And then finally, I do want to give a shout out to Sexy Red's Hood's Hottest Princess. I don't know what to say. I was having fun with that Sexy Red this year. Kill me. All right, with that being said, let's get into the top 50. At number 50, it is Reverend Kristen Michael Hayter, Saved, formerly known as Lingua Ignota. If you're familiar with her past work, you know that a lot of it is very religious focused, very religious themed, and that is definitely the case here. This thing feels more like a performance art piece than an album. At number 49, Black Country, New Road, live at Bush Hall, a live album from the band. Just good to know that even with Isaac Wood currently out of the group, they're still producing some good stuff. At number 48, it is Mike, Burning Desire. I've never been like the biggest Mike fan. However, this album I really enjoyed because I think he brought a different type of energy on the rapping end, and the production this time around was definitely way different from anything I've heard from him in the past. Number 47, it is Leve, Bewitched. She really brought back the jazz vocal sound, at least to a more popular, accessible audience here, and I think she did a good job. Can't wait to see what she does in the future because I think she can make something that's even better than this. Number 46 is one of the best R&B albums of the year, and that is Daniel Caesar, Never Enough. Really good comeback album from Daniel here, well written, well vocalized. Number 45, Carly Rae Jepsen, The Loveliest Time, the companion album from her one that came out last year, and I actually enjoyed this one a little bit more than that one. Number 44, The Electronic Legend, 106 Point Never Again. Number 43 is TK Maidza, Sweet Justice. Finally put out another album following those fantastic EPs a few years back. And if you've heard those last year's weird EPs, it's more of that just finally put into an album. You got some house, you got some hip hop, you got some hard-hitting bangers. Number 42, Kalela, Raven, another album we waited a very long time for, and she came through with something different. Did some alternative R&B mixed with some house. I love the cohesiveness of this album. The way it flowed was perfect. At number 41, one of the most popular albums of the year, Travis Scott, Utopia. Not a perfect album by any means, but still, I think Travis took a lot of risk with this album, and I think those risks paid off. And I would definitely say it's the best rap album to come out of the mainstream in 2023. Number 40 is Key Glock, Glaucoma 2. I owe Key Glock an apology. I was not familiar with his game because this is one of the best trap projects I heard in a while. He's a great rapper, and he picked some really good beats on this. Number 39 is one of the most underrated albums of the year, period, for me, and that is Kesha, Gag Order. One of the better pop albums I heard this year too, and I think Kesha has some of her most daring songs here, and also her most personal and vulnerable album. At number 38 is someone that I wasn't sure was ever gonna pop up on a year-end list again for me, but that is Mick Jenkins, The Patience. Mick has put out some pretty decent albums, but for me, nothing has really came close to The Waters. But this album, he was sounding hungry, and it has some of the best bars I heard all year. Number 37, James Blake, Playing Robots into Heaven. James on this one, throwing it back to a lot of the electronic sounds that he had on his debut, while also diving more into the EDM lane. Number 36, another huge album from this year, and that's Lil Yachty, Let's Start Here. Boat came through with a psychedelic rock record, and honestly, he kind of killed it. I thought he brought some great producers for this, some great vocalists for for this, and I think his voice adds a interesting element to this type of genre. Number 35 is Paranol, After the Magic, and yeah, just a super artsy shoegaze record. Number 34 is ANOHNI and the Johnsons, My Back Was a Bridge for You to Cross. I was super late to this album. I saw throughout the year how it was getting such rave reviews. Everyone was loving it, and I'm glad I did because this is fantastic. I love ANOHNI's vocals. Number 33 is Danny Brown, Quaranta. A little bit more of a laid-back album from Danny, but still filled with the personality we know and love from him, and definitely his most honest personal album, I think, of his career. Number 32 is Arm & Hammer, We Buy Diabetic Test Strips. I mean, these two are just so good together. And on a production end, like, I know JPEGMAFIA has some production credits on here. I think LP as well. Some of the best beats and weirdest beats they've ever been on. At number 31 is Ketramine, self-titled. I feel like this album didn't really get enough love as it should because I personally was playing it all summer. Ketranada's kind of housey hip-hop beats, what you expect from him, and Amine is as charismatic as he always is. Number 30 is Underscores, Wall Socket. If you love hyperpop and you haven't heard this album, what are you doing? At number 29 was a pretty polarizing album that came out this year, but I personally really loved it, and that is Tizo Touchdown, How Do You Sleep at Night. I just love Tizo's personality. I love how weird, strange his lyrics are. It's super versatile. We got R&B on here. We have hip-hop. We got rock. We got punk. We got soul. He has everything on this. At number 28, it is Tinashe, BB Angel. First Tinashe album to like really stop me in my tracks. This album is super sexy, and I think sees Tinashe really trying out new things with her sound. It's only 7 tracks though. I kind of wish it was longer, but all 7 of those tracks are heaters. At number 27 is Frango, Electrico. I'm not gonna bother saying the title name because I don't want to butcher it. But by far one of the funkiest and grooviest albums I heard all year. This album is just gonna make you want to dance. Number 26 is Zach Bryan, self-titled, one of the biggest names in country this year. And as far as country music goes, I think he put out the best country album. He's got a great voice, he's got great writing skills, and just a lot of passion that you don't see as much these days in mainstream country. All right, we have entered the top 25, and at number 25, it is a group that I'm glad I found out about this year, and that is Group Therapy. I was mature for my age, but I was still a child. From what I understand, these 3 were like child film stars that kind of like grew up together. Just a great alternative hip-hop album, and honestly, their chemistry, their energy is so good. It reminds me of something that used to make the early Brockhampton days so exciting. I definitely hear some influence from them on here, but still, they're totally their own separate thing. They're doing great things. Excited to see what more albums they drop because I feel like they're going to be huge. Number 24, it is Uchis, Red Moon and Venus. Cali with this one going full on R&B, soul, killing it. Cali just doesn't miss, man. At number 23, it is 100 gecs, 10,000 gecs. This album is so fun. Some of the most fun songs gecs have ever made, like Flog on the Floor. Who thinks of making a song like that? Number 22 is Foo Fighters, But Here We Are. This deep into the career, I really think that they put out one of their best albums. They went more shoegazy on this one. If you didn't know, they recently lost one of their band members, and on a lyrical end, a lot of the album has to do with that. Number 21 is King Cruel, Space Heavy. Archie did it again, just solid indie rock that we're used to from him. And yeah, this thing is called Space Heavy for a reason, because I love the spacey atmosphere this thing brought to the table. All right, we have entered the top 20. At number 20, Earl Sweatshirt and the Alchemist, Voir. I mean, if you don't know, Earl's been one of my favorite rappers for the longest time, and this collab with Alchemist has been long awaited, long teased. I feel like it lived up to the hype, man. Alchemist beats on here are fire, and Earl, on a rapping standpoint, he's coming with a little bit more energy and wit than I'm usually not used to hearing from him. Definitely my favorite project from Earl since some rap songs. Number 19, it's the boys. boygenius, The Record, Julian Baker, Lucy Dacus, Phoebe Bridgers, some of the best writers we have out there, so it's no surprise that this album is incredibly well written. So much chemistry from these 3. Glad that we finally got an album from them. Number 18 is Jeff Rosenstock, Hellmode, one of the best pop punk albums I've heard in a very long time, and on a lyrical end, he's doing a lot of healing. Number 17, Kara Jackson, Why Does the Earth Give Us People to Love? Another artist super happy I learned about this year because, for one, I absolutely love her voice. She has such a standout voice, and she's a former poet as well, so you know what you're gonna get on the writing end. But in terms of folk albums, also one of the best I've heard in a while. Number 16, George Clanton, Ooh Rap Ayah, just fire. Front to back, throwback, 90s, psychedelic vaporwave. Now entering the top 15, which was one of my most anticipated albums of this year, and that is Pink Pantheress, Heaven Knows. And this thing lived up to all the hype. Super catchy. I think as a writer, Pink Pantheress really proved that aspect of her game to be strong, something I think that some people kind of underrated. It's that garage pop sound that she was already known for, but finally, this time around, we just got it in a longer capacity. Number 14 is Navy Blue, Ways of Knowing, easily my favorite album from Navy Blue. Super soulful, jazzy hip-hop album, and Navy Blue is in top form on a poetic level lyrically. I love this album's themes of family, love, grief. Number 13, Jessie Ware, That Feels Good. I just love this kind of disco wave that Jessie has been on these past few years. 10 tracks, all killer, no filler, and vocally I think is one of the better albums I heard this year too. At number 12, it is going to be McKinley Dixon, Beloved, Paradise Jazz. Didn't know about him until this record, but some of the best instrumentation I heard on any album, not just a rap album, but any album this year. Top tier jazz rap, and McKinley Dixon is a phenomenal lyricist. And at number 11 is going to be Genesis Owusu, Struggler, one of my favorite artists out of Australia, and he came through with a really awesome concept record on this. The whole album kind of takes you through this life of the perspective of a roach, but also kind of a reflection of real life and the obstacles that life puts in your way. I just thought it was a really well thought out concept, and obviously all the funk, all of the punk infused sounds that are on this thing are awesome. All right, we are in the top 10. These are my top 10 albums of 2023. At number 10 is going to be Amaarae, Fountain Baby. We got Afrobeat on here. We got R&B. She even samples clips on here. She does a full-on, like, punk song. This thing goes, man. This thing is fire, and I just love that like squeaky voice that she has. Nobody sounding like her. Yeah, 2023, huge year for Amaarae, and rightfully so. Number 9 is Paramore, This Is Why. Comeback album from the band, and is what I think their best album. On the lyrical end, Haley is, I think, at her best. It's also the most rock album they ever made, and I think that worked out really well for them. At number 8 is what I think the best album to come from the mainstream this year, and that is Olivia Rodrigo, Guts. Pretty much an improvement on all ends from her debut. Vocally, I think she stepped up her songwriting. I think the production this time around is even better, going deeper into the rock sound that she was doing on that album too. And if Olivia Rodrigo is going to be the person that is at the forefront for mainstream pop music in the future and years to come, I think we're in good hands, man, because she is the truth. At number 7, it's Billy Woods and Kenny Segal, Maps. My favorite album from Billy. I think this album is pretty accessible, but I love Kenny Segal's production. Easily some of my favorite production that Billy's ever been on. I know they did an album before, but this one just hit harder for me. And lyrically, nobody's messing with Billy. I've said this. He is a top lyricist in the game, and the features on this thing added a lot too. All right, at number 6, it is the pop album of the year for me. The best pop album this year, and that is Caroline Polachek, Desire, I Want to Turn Into You. Just an art pop masterpiece, man. I love how weird Caroline is. I love how artsy she is. And even as weird and quirky as some of her stuff is, it still remained incredibly catchy to me as well. All right, we have entered my top 5, and coming in at number 5 is Mitski. The land is inhospitable, and so are we. Mitski has been one of the biggest names in the indie scene for like the past 10 years. She's had a lot of projects that I definitely have enjoyed, but this one, to me, this is the best thing she's ever made. It's always been well known that she's one of the best songwriters out there, but man, her lyrics on this one just hit. They hit. At points, this album could be pretty depressing lyrically, but it's the sad vibes that Mitski is known for, but I think it just sees her at her best. Now, at number 4, we have Lana Del Rey. Did you know that there's a tunnel under Ocean Boulevard? Yeah, the more I've listened to this album, I think I want to say this might be Lana's best, at least right up there with Norman Rockwell. I think some of Lana's best written songs ever show up on here, and I think this is also some of her most ambitious and riskiest music of her entire career. She was trying out a lot of gospel sounds too, like on that opener, which is one of the best openers all year, the Grants. Yeah, but stuff like Let the Light In, Paris, Texas, Candy, Necklace, Sweet, like A&W, some of her best tracks ever. All right, top three. Number 3, Sampha, Lahai. There were points where I thought we would never get a new Sampha album, but 6.5 years later, he finally came through following his debut. I think this is better than his first album. This album was simply beautiful. The whole theme of this album being around the noble Jonathan L. Segal, which is kind of about navigating your way through life, trying to find life's meaning, self-realization. Yeah, I just thought that was a very touching, beautiful thing. And vocally, Sampha is one of my favorite voices ever, and yeah, he didn't lose a step. The production on here is very Element, but it also has some really cool electronic sounds. You know, it's very rare that you wait this long for an album and it lives up to the hype, but Sampha did that, man. This thing was worth the wait. All right, at number 2, my runner-up album of the year is going to be JPEGMAFIA and Danny Brown, Scaring the Hoes. I was addicted to this album this year. I mean, Peggy and Danny are 2 of my favorite rappers ever. On paper, it just made so much sense, as these guys are some of the weirdest voices in rap. Some of Peggy's most insane production. He did a lot of cool sampling on this album that he hasn't really done in the past. And man, the chemistry that these 2 have with one another is off the charts. I know there's plans to make a second one, and yeah, I have no doubt that that thing is just going to be as fire as this one was. All right, and finally, at number 1, my album of the year for 2023 is Sufjan Stevens, Javelin. God, there's no album this year that hit me on an emotional level more than this one did. And just being a fan of Sufjan and knowing what he's been going through this past year, if you don't know, for one, he's been dealing with an illness that has made him unable to walk. However, he is expected to make a recovery, but he's been in the hospital throughout this whole album. He also dedicated this album to his partner, who he lost last year. And a lot of the songs on here do talk about that loss. The intro, for instance, Goodbye Evergreen, which is one of my favorite intros of the year. A song like Shit Talk, which if that was a single, probably would have been my song of the year. Sufjan's voice is just so soothing, so warming, so calm. The lush instrumentation on this thing is gorgeous. It's perfect. I think all of the artists that he brought on here to have some of the backing vocals added such a nice touch to it. For a guy who has one of the best discographies ever for the indie scene, I really think this is one of his best and a big return to form for him. Yeah, the more I thought about it, there just was not a better album this year than this one. Yeah, my album of the year 2023 is Sufjan Stevens, Javelin. And that's pretty much it. If you guys want, hit that subscribe button down below. Follow me on all my socials, TikTok, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, all that. Join the Discord, and I'll see you guys soon.